So this section we're going to go into stories of road rage. Again, road rage being felonious, angry driving. Stories of road rage and consequences of it. Now we know for a fact, a medical fact, that people who are angry are more at risk for cardiovascular events, strokes and heart attacks. We know that. So by overcoming your angry driving on the road, you're facilitating your health. You're having a better prognosis for a long, happy, healthy life. That's not good for you psychologically, spiritually, or physically to be screaming at other people, to get really angry with other people. And even if it's not angry driving, where you're just even thinking negative thoughts about them, where you want to, I'd like to strangle you and so forth. Those thoughts are not good for you. They're really not good for you. You want to be able to balance it with, I refuse to let you control my anger, or I wish you well, I really do. Combining that is most powerful. Again, most people are just going to probably want to use, I refuse to let you control my anger. Now, there was I'm going to talk about some of the more dramatic ones. There was a case of Wendy and Travis James and their 2-year-old son, Bobby. This took place, I don't know, 12 years ago approximately, in Hesperia, California.
We all had pulled up to a stoplight, and we were the second car back in the right lane, which is a slow lane, and the car that ended up being the shooter car was in the left lane at the crosswalk, and just pulled up to the light like any other light, and the light changed, and we progressed down the road about half a mile or so, and the gap between the car in front of me and the car that was to my left had opened up, so I signaled to pass, and the car on my left sped up and blocked me in, and this happened several times where I tried to pass, and it's turning into like a cat and mouse thing.
We were driving down the road, and a car in front of us, my husband tried to pass. He put his signal on. No words were exchanged, just a signal he put in his car, and they wouldn't let us pass. And all of a sudden I heard things hitting the windshield, and I thought it was rocks, but it was bullets, because I felt the glass in my mouth. And then I told the kids to duck, and my son couldn't duck. He held his stuffed animal up to his head, and the bullet went right through the stuffed animal and hit him right in the temple of his head and lodged into the back of his skull.
As I swung behind him into the center divider to pass him, this young kid sat up on the passenger side window of the car I was trying to pass and started pumping rounds into the car. At first, I thought he was flipping us off or yelling at us or whatever. It was dusk, and the handgun he had is a black finished handgun, so it was, you couldn't tell that he was shooting until, I didn't know he was shooting until the round before the one that came through the windshield to kill Bobby.
Now, you had a case of Scott Briggs and his father. Now, Scott, his father had some young people in the car with him and invited Scott to come to an event. And Scott said, well, Dad, they were very close, and Scott said, well, I'll get there later, Dad. I can't go right now. So they're on the road, and somebody got angry at him and cut him off on the road. And her anger was beeping on, was a road rage incident. And Mr. Briggs was forced to collide into another car.
The hospital got the call that there was a collision. Call additional staff in to help, with the situation. They didn't know how many were coming in. And now at this point it was only going to be one, but they didn't know that at the time. They knew there was multiples. So I get a phone call, your father's been in an accident. So I get in the car, I traveled to the hospital. He goes, don't worry, it's not life-threatening. Don't worry, don't worry. And at that point, it wasn't. He had a stable heartbeat, stable blood pressure, and they, that's stable to them. I get there and I look, and there's 10 people working on him. My brother's there, my mother's there, family members are there. That, man, I don't know how they got there before me, but they did. And I'm watching him on the table, and I watched the doctor stick his finger in my father's side, and I watched his body, 260 or 270 pounds, from the top half of his body lift about this far off the table. My brother comes up and he says, Scott, he says, there's been some complications with Dad. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, the nurse told me earlier that he was okay, but she came up to tell me there's been some complications, and she didn't want me to think that she lied to me. I said, well, what's wrong? He says, I don't know. And it just seems like it wasn't a couple minutes later, I'm in the doctor's office, and he walks in. And he looks at me for a second, and he says, I got to talk to you. And he starts to look down, and he starts to mumble. I said, is my father all right? And he's well, and he's going like this, and I could feel it. And I said, is he dead? And he's well, and he's doing this. And I said, is he dead? He's doing the mumble thing again. Finally, I said, is he dead? And he just went like this. Yes. At that point, I lost it.
And Scott has tried to do, as well as Travis and Wendy, to help let people see the dangers of what happens. Had a situation in Santa Cruz where this man who owns a restaurant, another individual, got into a road rage up in Santa Cruz, cutting each other. Both were involved in this road rage. And eventually, the one in a Mercedes pulled off to the side of the road. Actually, the man in the Ford pulled off, and then the guy in the Mercedes pulled off. So the guy in the Ford got out of his car, walked over to the man in the Mercedes. The man rolled down his window and shot him dead. Just shot him dead right there. Drove off, had his car washed from the blood, got the blood off there, went on with his life. He was apprehended later. A very dramatic case. There was a case of a woman who, two women got into it in this situation, and they both pulled off at the exit. One got out of her car to come over, and the other shot her dead. I said, oh my God, I shot her. I mean, it was almost like, how could I do this? I mean, I shot her. He was alarmed, but I shot her. I think she called the 911.